This is one of the most sumptuous trees I've ever seen. I mean, just look at it. I mean, apart from the phenomenal character with all those squirming, wiggling, moss-laden branches, but look at all the polypody ferns as well. Polypody ferns, which you can see, I mean, they're kind of looking a little bit sad after the winter, so it's waiting for some fresh growth. But there's such a wonderful feature of our Atlantic rainforests, and just that abundance of life in one tree and what this one tree can sustain. It's just quite a sight. However, there's some fantastic angles where the tree just looks its best, but then there's lots of other trees in the way, so I can't get a clean shot. This is about as open as I can get, and in all honesty, I think the 100 to 400 is going to be a little bit too long, but we'll have a quick look. Well, yeah, I mean, 100 is getting in really quite tight. A snafu of entanglement. Just trying a couple of different options here. Native 3x2, but also a 4:3, which is my favourite aspect ratio at the minute. Height of the tripod really coming into its own here, just to get above some of these foreground oak branches. Slightly frustrating breeze blowing through every now and then, but the lights, it's kind of just started to drizzle slightly, but the light is just lifted a little bit up there, which you can just tell has had a little bit of a difference on the feeling of light hitting the tops of these branches. Just brings a little bit more three-dimensionality to it. I mean, that is just kind of chaos, but it's such captivating chaos. I love it. There's just a tiny patch of blue sky over there. So that's what's giving it this feeling of light, as the sun is obviously in the edge of these bright white clouds there. Okay, a smaller lens now, where height is going to be my friend. Hopefully I can get away with this without causing any damage. Now, it's just this branch up here is in the way, so what I'm going to do is carefully, without falling into the ravine, just grab that. Grab the bigger branch so I don't snap that one off. And I've got the Sony app on my phone. It's okay, Meg, I'm not going anywhere. And I should be able to just press that button. And there we go. I think I missed that best bit of light. I'll get one more. I've left it on the 5-second timer. Oops. Excellent. I'm so mesmerised by this tree that I've put the big lens back on just to see if I can get something different, something a little bit more abstracted. Because ever since I mentioned the word snafu, I thought I need to get in a little bit tighter to that feeling of entanglement and chaos in the centre there. So yeah, I've gone right up to, what, about 150 mil, something like that, and just concentrating on the very squiggly section where the soft light is just hitting it there. And I quite like it. It's a vertical 4x3. It's certainly a worthwhile addition to the versions that I've got of this tree already. A little series, a little mini project. It's always worthwhile just putting the image on playback and then stepping away and just viewing it as a thumbnail to really get a sense of, because all I see there is shapes, shadow, light, colour, and it just gives me a sense of balance in the image, where the open spaces are as well. and I think that looks pretty good considering what I've got to work with. I've just come across this very nice arrangement of oak trees here. It's not about that kind of brooding atmosphere that we so often see in woodland photography, but actually just a scene that speaks for the location, but is also very typical of the conditions that we most often see, which is perhaps overcast, the sun's trying to break through there, it's stopped raining now, it's just a very pleasant day to be out. But that soft lighting in that direction, it is adding something to the scene, giving a bit of contrast, a bit of three-dimensionality to it. But everything's kind of anchored with this main cluster of oak trees on the left-hand side there, and then it starts to open out on the right-hand side, but also as it opens out, we've got a little bit more character in the trees on the right-hand side, some beautiful thick moss on the lower branches. We've got a fallen branch. So everything's very nicely framed across the bottom with that feature. And these trees are also standing out against the backdrop because back there's lots of grey branches, there's lots of old man's beard, and it's offering that colour contrast that's needed to separate out these subjects. I'm noticing other things as well for me to kind of consider for when I want to come back to this location again. For example, if you see all those dark kind of browny, rusty mounds in the distance there, that's last year's ferns, you know, where they've died off. There'll be new ones, new shoots starting to unfurl now. So they're quite large ferns, they're quite large woodland ferns, and they're going to look fantastic in another month or so. So yeah, I definitely want to come back and see that kind of early summertime bushness. Some of the nice little features, we've kind of got a bit of undulation in the understory, boulders, and some nice kind of dark characters further back. Everything slopes away from us as well, and it's just adding that little bit of depth. So overall, quite a nice little arrangement. Got a fallen tree back there as well. The sun's, it's amazing just those subtle differences in light as time goes on. So just kind of keep snapping away, so just look at those differences afterwards and just start to get a feel for light and how those subtle changes make a big difference in the final result. Right, good, yeah, quite happy with that. One thing that I think I'm pretty decent at is finding nice woodlands and interesting trees to photograph, such as these wow factor bearded beech trees that I photographed yesterday. What a fantastic find, and nothing like anything else that I've ever seen in the UK. The amount of moss and old man's beard on here is just really quite something. Anyway, I think there's a tendency when you're away on a week like this just to be out all day, every day with your camera, plugging away, But if you're anything like me, then that can be counterproductive, because after a few hours, you know, things start to ache, my back's telling me to have a rest, and if I just keep plugging away, then I'm more likely to make mistakes and not really maximize the time that I have available. So I always give myself the time to go out without the camera, just like I would locally, phone in the pocket, and just give it, you know, whatever feels right, an hour, 2 hours, and just have a good route around. And it always pays dividends. I typically always find something that I want to go back and photograph. It's exactly what Meg and I did yesterday evening. It was really good fun. It just reminds me of when I was a kid, going out in the local forest and just, you know, no idea where I was going, just rooting around and seeing what I could find, you know, playing with sticks and just being a kid. So yeah, it reminds me of those times. So I wouldn't say I found anything that's, you know, as good as this or any better than anything else that we've looked at already, but it was still interesting and it showed potential, and it's an area that I wouldn't have found if I was lugging all my camera gear about. So let's go and have a look now and see how it's looking today. The sky's getting quite bright, but it is quite shaded up there. So yeah, let's go and have a closer look. Now, based on the shape of these trees and just how boggy the land is here, I'm guessing these are alders, which is the first that I've seen while being here. It's seriously boggy around here. I might sink in a minute. How fantastic is this? Unfortunately, stream's a little bit dried up, but you can see where it's been flowing. So I think this is one to come back to in, I don't know, maybe it's late autumn or winter time. Because to see that in full flow with the framing of these branches here would be really quite something. Now, as much as I like this tree and I'm glad I found it, this is proving very difficult to compose, particularly in today's conditions, which are now very bright and very dry. Now, I did initially anticipate making an image further up there. I do have a vertical shot which I might show, but there's a lot of compromise with elements clashing, hazel trees in the way, etc. So I've come a little bit further down, and I've settled on this horizontal 4x3 for now. So what I've tried to do is separate out some of the elements. So we've got our main feature oak tree, we've got the bright coloured hazel on the left, we've got a very mossy hazel up on the right hand corner just to add a little bit of depth. There's a couple of things that I've tried to take out. So there's a fallen, very light coloured branch at the bottom, so I'm just nipping that out because I found that quite distracting. So the foundation of the image is made up of the base of the hazel, the kind of trunk of the mossy branches of the oak, and then some deadfall over on the right hand side. So there's some consistency there. The main light source is the sun desperately trying to get out over there. So it's coming in from the left. The main gesture of the oak tree is from right to left, so it complements that. It also complements the very light coloured branches on the left hand side of the hazel. So yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, it could, you know, I tried. It's okay. I think for now it's going to have to be one that goes in the memory bank for a possible return visit and take two. But I'm sure there's a nice image to be had. But for now, this just feels like a record shot for me. But there you go. Do you know what? I really need a rest. I'm going to head back, get a coffee and something to eat, and then see what this afternoon brings. This episode has been sponsored by my own book, Gathering Time. There's only a limited number of copies left until it's sold out for good. The book has received incredible feedback from around the world, so please head over to www.baxter.photos to buy your copy, enjoy the photos, read the insightful chapters, and be inspired. And thank you ever so much for your kind support.